Of that other 60 to 70% who live vaginally, about a third of those will have some sort of assisted birth, so forceps or on-tooth deliveries.
Pauline, there's a lot of talk of the downsides of caesarean birth. It's major abdominal surgery. But should we be more open about acknowledging the downsides of a vaginal birth?
It's interesting, Kirsty, because we were actually just talking about that in the green room. I think really women do want information about birth, and I think for information to be accurate, we need good research, and we do need to be presenting both risks and benefits. I think the vast majority of women do want, as Belinda said, a straightforward birth, and for many women that actually does mean a vaginal birth. I see a number of women who've had a caesarean section where it may have been a surprise, where afterwards they can be quite disappointed with that. And I think this is not about making women feel that they've had any less of an experience if they've had a caesarean section. I think it's really important that we focus on this idea of birth being a positive experience for all women, whichever way the baby comes.
Obviously, I mean, in my mind, a baby producing a healthy baby is an enormously positive experience. But there are things like tearing which seem to be contemporary taboos that we just don't talk about.
I think it's something that women talk about, actually. Probably it's the focus. Maybe one reason why women are requesting caesarean section because of fears about tearing with the perineum. We do talk about it. I mean, in terms of the birth centre, we have a birth preparation session at about 36 weeks, and it's a question women and their partners will often bring up. What happens if I tear? Who will actually do the stitches? Where is that done? Can I have pain relief for it? So I think it is talked about, actually.
I think what I mean by that is when we look at caesarean sections and we say it's abdominal surgery, there will be stitches, there will be recovery time, we don't necessarily always say there is this degree. I mean, in your experience, what are the percentage, what are the figures around tearing?
Looking at the birth centre figures, about 45% of women won't have a tear at all. Another 40% will probably have what we call a second degree tear when there's injury to the vaginal and the muscle. And obviously a much smaller proportion of women would have a severe tear, like a third or fourth degree tear. That would be, in the birth centres, probably less than 2% actually.
So that isn't something to be worried about. I mean, when you say women are going for caesarean sections because they're worried about tearing, that isn't actually a realistic fear in percentage terms.
I think it's one of the reasons. It clearly isn't probably the biggest reason why women go for caesarean section, but they will often bring it up about fear of their perineum afterwards. I think it's something that we need to talk about. I think it's something that women may need to prepare for. It's all about how the birth is conducted. There's some interesting stuff about perineal massage that may actually help in terms of preventing tearing. So those sorts of things do need to be talked about in pregnancy.
Linda, why might a woman have negative feelings about her birth if she doesn't deliver? We talked about this word normally, you brought in this word straightforward. If she doesn't deliver in a straightforward fashion, after all, it's likely that she'll have a healthy baby in progress.
Well, when women feel negatively about their birth, there are a whole range of things that it might be. So there's a very interesting piece of research that we looked at what ways of caring for somebody are associated with people feeling negatively afterwards. And we know that if you have, the more medical intervention you have and the less support you have, the more likely you are to feel traumatised and have something like post-traumatic stress. The more straightforward your birth is and the better support you have, particularly if you have a midwife that you already know, the more positive you're likely to look at your birth. So, but there are some women who have a straightforward birth who feel traumatised, and there are some women who have a complicated medical birth who feel fine. It's just a likelihood thing. What seems to be really important is the support of somebody that you know with you. And when you
So are you saying that you can have a straightforward birth or caesarean birth, but your feelings about that relate to the degree of support you had at the time and thereafter?
Yes, at the time and thereafter, but particularly at the time. And it's even if you have good support, the more medicalised your birth is, the harder it is, so the less likely you are to feel positive. So what I'm saying is a very variable thing. Some women do go into their birth with a particular point of view, a particular
do we spend too much time concentrating on just one day? There's so much information out there. Jane Draper is the BBC Health correspondent, and I've asked her to give us an instant guide to the most up-to-date figures surrounding birth.
Hi, Kirsty, the latest figures released just last week show we're just over 813,000 births in the UK in the past year. That's the highest figure since 1972. And in England and Wales, birth rates are rising in all age groups bar teenage mums since 2001. So we're seeing something called a baby boom. Immigration is one factor behind that. Births to mothers. And the number of births to mothers aged 40 plus has more than quadrupled over the last 3 decades. So the average age of mothers is now just short of 30. There are still complications such as stillbirths. Women do still die while giving birth in the UK. These are rare events, but not something to be complacent about.
What does the research tell us about the safety of different options for birth?
There was a big landmark study called Birthplace. It was published in the BMJ 2 years ago. That looked at almost